Disrupt is the word in the tech community, right? Yeah, no, I'm going to tell you guys not to innovate. That's what my talk is all about. Okay, so let me just get started with something a little bit different. Can anybody in the room tell me who that is? Ian Fleming. Ian Fleming is the creator of James Bond, the author. And I was just wondering, does anybody know what the first Bond car was?
Rolls Royce.
Was it? Aston Martin, DB5, I think. Anybody else want to guess? Bentley. Who said Bentley? Bentley over here. There's a couple of different ones there. So depends on what way you go by. The first in the movie, Dr. No, was a sunbeam, and sunbeam. Oh, I can't remember the name of the model, but and that was in Dr. No before. I think it was the second film that he got the Aston Martin. But in the books, actually, the first James Bond car was a Bentley, and Rolls Royce is almost correct as well, because Bentley was just in the process of going bust after the Depression, and Rolls Royce bought them out. So this is Ian Fleming, and he's driving his Bentley. This is a Bentley 4.5 litre actually. It was one of their most famous models. This particular one is called the Blower, the Bentley Blower, and that's because of the supercharger that's on the front. And by the way, this was one of their smaller cars. They also had the 6.5 litre and the 8 litre. And the 8 litre was the car which caused Rolls Royce to buy them, because it was damaging the sales of the famous one, the Phantom, is it? So anyway, that's a bit of car nerdery. So this is actually what the Bentley Blower looks like. Massive car, and this is the 4.5 litre. So I just want you guys to imagine that you're driving this car. So this car now is about $2 million worth. So let's say your mate won the Euro Millions and lets you drive. I mean, this thing is fabulous to look at, sounds amazing. And so you might be a little bit nervous to drive this car because it's 2 million quid's worth. But you know, you get in, everything looks familiar. You know, you've got your 3 pedals, you've got your steering wheel. And you're driving down the road and your mate's beside you and everything's great. And then a truck pulls out in front of you. So of course, you don't want to damage this nice car or hurt yourself, hurt your friend, and so you slam on the brakes, which accelerates you directly into the truck and kills everybody. So big problem with this car, for us driving it, is that the pedals are in the wrong order for us. The brake and accelerator are swapped as to how they are now. And so the next car I just want to show you, this is a very iconic car, it's the Model T Ford. Now, the Model T Ford is very interesting. I'm actually going to, I have some cog notes here, I have to read this out. So with the Model T Ford, there are 3 pedals on the floor. The brake pedal stops the car, but it's in the far right position, normally where we have the accelerator. In addition to the brake pedal, we have a gear selector that gives you first gear when it's all the way to the floor. It gives you neutral when it's halfway out, and it gives you second gear when it's all the way out. And then the next pedal is actually the reverse. So, and apart from steering the car with your hands, you're going to be adjusting the firing of the spark plugs with your left hand, and the accelerator is actually on your right hand. So, driving the Model T Ford is actually very, very difficult. Now, in addition to that, I don't know if our friend from Design West is still here. But in addition to that, you could actually break your arm starting the Model T Ford if it backfired while you were starting because of the crank start. So you might end up with a broken arm and then a video on Times Square. So yeah, so actually driving those cars is quite difficult. So website user interface don't usually risk life and limb for the most part. But they do have a big effect, particularly for small businesses. They can affect your livelihood. So we'll talk about the user interface, or the controls of a website. And just talking about design patterns and innovation. So when we set up a website and you're thinking about setting up your website for the first time, you look at your competitors' websites, and you think, they all look the same, I want something different. And you go to your web designer and you say, no, that looks just like that other guy's site. We need to do something different. And so I would like to encourage you not to innovate too much in your design. So we have patterns for a reason. So we tend to put the logo in the top left, and when you click on it, that brings you to the home page. That's because people have, over time, developed that as a pattern, and it becomes something that a lot of people know about. So I don't know if you guys didn't know this, go to any website and click on the logo and see what happens. Most of the time, you'll be brought to the site homepage. Another simple one, and this has become really popular now. Does anybody know the name of this?
The burger.
The burger, or the hamburger icon, which is a symbol for a menu. But it's actually called a hamburger, because that looks like a burger that I've never seen. Maybe this is like the guy got in that film Breaking Down, Michael Douglas, and he's like, this doesn't look like the picture. So we quite often have a navigation menu in the top right hand side. And again, that's just a pattern. Now, we have this icon quite often now, particularly when you go on mobile. And usually it's in the top right hand side, sometimes you'll see it in the top left of the website. And that's just a pattern that users have become aware of and become used to. And so just like moving the pedals or the controls on a car, I would suggest that when you innovate in your design, that you don't innovate with these particular things. Just one last simple example. And down the bottom of most sites, usually a different color to the rest of the page, is a footer. And there's some tiny text that you can't read down there. That's literally what this says. But you know it's legal and contact information, usually. It's usually got the privacy policy and that kind of stuff. Sometimes you'll find opening hours or phone numbers or various different things kind of miscellaneous that don't really fit elsewhere on the site or that you want to have on every page of the site. And again, I'd suggest that you continue with that pattern and leave those things there and don't innovate in terms of your design. So just to give you an example, I think this is the guy who's the most iconic designer for everybody, at least in the tech industry, and also made polo shirts cool. And Steve, I think one of his famous quotes is, design is not how it looks, design is how it works. And so for me, when I'm doing design and I'm looking at web design, I'm thinking about how do people actually use these websites. And like Anne was saying earlier, a huge number of people now are using mobile phones. It hit about the 50%, it crossed over the 50% barrier for most sites about 2 years ago. And again, with the rise actually of the iPhone, which brought us all these smartphones and Androids and everything. And so now it depends on what business you're in. So somebody like Valerie, who has the pizza truck business and local food business, for her business, maybe 95% of her traffic is going to be on mobile. That's typically local retailers and local food businesses. For somebody, say, in financial services, who provides B2B financial services, to the Fortune 50, then maybe 10% or 5% or 1% of their traffic will be on mobile, and most will be people in offices. So it does depend on which business you're in. But just think about people using your website on a mobile. And also think about the fact that you don't get to choose the environment. And this is the thing about websites, is you don't control how somebody uses your website. So people are in the pub reading your website text on a cracked screen, and they're running out of power, so they have the screen on low. So it would be nice to make sure that your contrast is high enough to make that screen easily readable on a low-powered screen. They might be stuck at traffic lights reading your website. They might be in the queue at Aldi. So you don't really control that environment. So you want to make it as easy as possible for them to use it. So the other thing about patterns, and just going back to Apple and Steve Jobs, this is the Apple website in 1998. So Steve Jobs had just come back about, I'd say about 6 months at this stage. If anybody doesn't know, he was kicked out of Apple for 3 or 4 years. and then he was brought back to rescue the business. And this is the Apple website. This is actually what it looked like. This isn't. This is the full website side to side. This is not two screenshots. It's one single shot. So, but you see that they still have the logo top left. I bet if you click that, you go to the homepage, and they still have that navigation menu top right and all the different tabs. So it's interesting to see that back in 1998, that's how they were. And this is the Apple website yesterday, and you can see this. A lot has changed in terms of crafting the beautiful aesthetic, but it's still the same. They've still got that logo, just going off screen there, and they've still got that logo, which brings you to the homepage, and they've still got that navigation menu, and this time it's going all the way across. But and I'm not going to show it here, but if you scroll down to the footer, they've got all the contact and legal information and all that. So even the most innovative design thought leaders are still using these patterns, and that's because there's good reason for it. So when we're innovating, I would suggest that we stick to established patterns for a particular user interface and innovate elsewhere in the design. So one final example, and this is Amazon.co.uk, and incredibly busy site, so much stuff on here. But you'll see that even they still stick with their top left logo and their navigation menu. Now they have a million things going on here. One of the most interesting things is that even though there's probably, I'd say there's probably 1,000 things you could click on that site, on that page, it's still really obvious what they want you to do on this particular page, which is click add to basket, because their call to action is really strong and it stands out from the rest of the design. In fact, you can see the add to list, that's like the add to a wish list down the bottom. That's secondary call to action. They have that as very light grey, almost white, just so that it fades into the background and it doesn't distract from that practical add to basket button, because that's the button that makes them money here. So my mantra in web design is don't make me think. So that's the title of this book by a guy called Steve Krug. And whenever I'm looking at web design, I'm thinking from the user's perspective. Don't make them have to figure things out. Don't make them think. It should be very easy, self-evident, obvious as to how to use your website, how to navigate around it. So innovate in different areas, innovate in your business model, innovate in your branding and your identity design, but don't innovate in the most important parts of your user interface. Thank you.